There's a trait that separates the powerful from the powerless, the leaders from the followers, the hunters from the hunted. It's not intelligence. Plenty of brilliant people die broke. It's not charisma. Many charming people get used and discarded. It's not even ruthlessness. Cruel people often destroy themselves through their own cruelty. The trait that gives you an unfair edge is something most people never develop because it goes against everything society teaches you. Society wants you loud, reactive, desperate for validation. But Machiavelli knew that true power operates in the shadows, that the most dangerous people are often the quietest, and that invisible dominance beats visible desperation every single time. This hidden trait is why some people seem to effortlessly command respect, while others beg for it. Why certain individuals can walk into any room and immediately become the center of gravity. Why the real power brokers never need to announce their influence. Everyone simply feels it. Concise introduction. Niccolò Machiavelli discovered something that would change his understanding of power forever. The people who actually controlled events were rarely the ones making the most noise. The loud princes fell quickly. The obvious tyrants created their own resistance. The transparent schemers were easily outmaneuvered. But there was another type of leader, one who possessed what Machiavelli called invisible dominance. These individuals controlled outcomes without obvious effort, influenced decisions without direct commands, and shaped reality while appearing to simply observe it. This trait is the difference between those who demand respect and those who naturally command it, between people who fight for attention and those who have attention drawn to them effortlessly. Most people will never develop this trait because it requires sacrificing immediate gratification for long-term power. But once you understand how it works, you'll see it everywhere. And more importantly, you'll know how to develop it yourself. Before we dive into Machiavelli's secret, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. This channel reveals the psychological strategies that the powerful use and the weak never learn. Every day, we decode the hidden rules of influence, control, and strategic thinking that separate wolves from sheep. Don't just watch. Become part of the community that understands how power really works. Invisible dominance is not about being quiet for the sake of being mysterious. It's not about withholding opinions to seem deep. It's not about manipulating people through manufactured scarcity or playing hard to get. Those are tactics that amateurs use when they mistake the appearance of power for actual power. Real invisible dominance is about developing such internal certainty and strategic clarity that external validation becomes irrelevant. It's about understanding human psychology so deeply that you can predict and influence behavior without conscious effort on anyone's part, including your own. People with invisible dominance don't try to control others. They create conditions where others naturally want to follow their lead. They don't demand respect. They earn it through consistent competence and unshakable composure. They don't seek attention. They become magnetic by being genuinely comfortable with themselves. The trait manifests as an unusual combination of qualities: complete comfort with uncertainty, immunity to social pressure, genuine interest in understanding rather than being understood, and the ability to remain calm and centered regardless of external chaos. This creates what psychologists call gravitational authority, a presence so centered and unflappable that it naturally draws others into its orbit rather than being pulled into theirs. Invisible dominance works because it exploits fundamental aspects of human psychology that most people don't understand. Humans are wired to follow confidence, but they're also programmed to test it. Most people fail this test by becoming defensive when challenged, reactive when provoked, or desperate when their authority is questioned. Those with invisible dominance pass these tests effortlessly because they're not attached to external validation of their worth. When someone challenges them, they respond with genuine curiosity rather than defensiveness. When provoked, they remain calm and centered. When their authority is questioned, they don't rush to prove it. They simply continue demonstrating it through their actions. This creates a psychological paradox for others. The less this person seems to need their approval, the more they want to give it. The less reactive they are to social pressure, the more others respect their independence. The less they try to prove their competence, the more their competence becomes obvious. The trait also works because it's so rare. In a world full of people desperately trying to be noticed, validated, and approved of, encountering someone who seems genuinely indifferent to these needs is both refreshing and unsettling. It stands out precisely because it doesn't try to stand out. Machiavelli wrote extensively about the importance of appearing powerful while concealing the mechanisms of power. He understood that obvious displays of control often create resistance, while subtle influence creates willing compliance. The prince who rules through fear must constantly maintain that fear through visible demonstrations of power. The leader who relies on charisma must continuously perform to maintain their appeal. The authority figure who demands obedience must constantly enforce their demands. But the individual with invisible dominance operates differently. They don't rule through fear, but through respect. They don't perform charisma, but embody genuine confidence. They don't demand obedience, but inspire voluntary cooperation. Machiavelli called this approach the art of being underestimated while over-delivering. Let others believe they understand your limitations while you quietly exceed their expectations. Allow them to think they have figured you out while operating on levels they haven't recognized. This creates sustainable power because it doesn't depend on external circumstances or other people's continued cooperation. It's self-reinforcing. The more others try to understand or influence someone with invisible dominance, the more obvious it becomes that conventional tactics don't work on them. Strategic indifference is not about not caring. It's about caring selectively and strategically. People with invisible dominance have identified what truly matters to them and remain genuinely indifferent to everything else. This means being unaffected by social approval or disapproval from people whose opinions don't impact your strategic objectives. It means remaining calm when others try to provoke emotional reactions. It means being immune to flattery from people who can't meaningfully contribute to your goals. Strategic indifference creates power because most people can be controlled through their need for approval, their fear of rejection, or their desire for recognition. When these motivators don't work, others don't know how to influence you, which automatically puts you in a position of greater control. The key is that this indifference must be genuine, not performed. People can sense the difference between someone who truly doesn't need their approval and someone who's pretending not to care while desperately hoping for validation. Those with invisible dominance are constantly learning about the people around them, but they do so through observation and strategic questioning rather than obvious investigation. They listen more than they speak, ask questions that reveal others, motivations, and pay attention to patterns that others miss. This intelligence gathering is invisible because it appears natural and conversational rather than interrogative. They genuinely seem interested in understanding others' perspectives, which makes people comfortable sharing more than they normally would. Over time, this creates significant information advantages. They understand the psychological profiles, motivations, insecurities, and desires of everyone in their environment while revealing little about themselves. This asymmetric information creates asymmetric power. The intelligence gathering extends to understanding systems, organizations, and social dynamics. They see patterns, opportunities, and potential problems before others recognize them, allowing them to position themselves advantageously while others are still trying to understand what's happening. Emotional unavailability, when used strategically, creates psychological intrigue and social value. People naturally want what they can't easily access, including emotional connection and validation from those who don't readily provide it. This doesn't mean being cold or cruel. It means being selective about emotional investment and maintaining clear boundaries about what kinds of behavior you'll tolerate and reward. It means not being reactive to others' emotional states and not taking responsibility for managing others' feelings. When someone becomes emotionally unavailable in this strategic sense, others often work harder to earn their approval, attention, or emotional engagement. This creates a dynamic where others are constantly trying to prove their worth rather than the person with invisible dominance having to demonstrate theirs. The key is maintaining this unavailability consistently, rather than using it as a manipulation tactic. It must be based on genuine selectivity about emotional investment, rather than calculated withholding for effect. The fourth pillar involves being reliable in character while being unpredictable in tactics. Others know they can count on your competence, integrity, and general approach, but they can't predict exactly how you'll respond to specific situations or what moves you'll make next. This predictable unpredictability keeps others slightly off balance while maintaining their trust and respect. They know you're not erratic or unstable, but they also can't manipulate you by assuming they know how you'll react to various situations. It prevents others from taking you for granted while maintaining the stability needed for genuine relationships and professional effectiveness. People respect your consistency while being intrigued by your flexibility. Developing invisible dominance begins with internal work that others can't see but everyone will feel. This involves developing genuine self-knowledge, clear personal values, and unshakable confidence in your own judgment. This means spending significant time alone, thinking deeply about what you actually want from life rather than what you think you should want. It means identifying your actual strengths and weaknesses rather than your perceived ones. It means developing internal validation systems that don't depend on others' opinions. The internal foundation also requires developing genuine competence in areas that matter to you. Invisible dominance can't be faked. It must be based on real capabilities, real achievements, and real confidence that comes from actual accomplishments. This phase takes time and requires patience. Most people skip this step because they want immediate results. But attempting to project invisible dominance without the internal foundation leads to transparent manipulation that sophisticated people easily see through. The second phase involves systematically changing how you communicate to reflect your developing internal changes. This means speaking less frequently but with greater impact when you do speak. It means asking more questions and making fewer statements. It means listening with genuine interest rather than waiting for your turn to talk. It also means eliminating certain communication patterns that signal insecurity or neediness, over-explaining your decisions, seeking validation for your opinions, apologizing for taking up space, or trying to prove your worth through verbal performance. Instead, you develop communication patterns that signal confidence and security, speaking with certainty when you have something valuable to contribute, remaining silent when others are speaking without feeling compelled to add commentary, and asking questions that demonstrate genuine curiosity rather than attempting to show off your knowledge. The goal is to become someone whose words carry weight because they're spoken thoughtfully and strategically rather than reflexively. Phase 3. Social dynamic mastery. The third phase involves learning to navigate social dynamics from a position of strength rather than need. This means entering social situations with the mindset of understanding and potentially contributing rather than seeking approval or validation. It involves developing the ability to remain centered and unaffected by group dynamics, peer pressure, or social manipulation attempts. You participate in social interactions without being controlled by them. This also means learning to recognize and respond appropriately to different types of people and social situations. You understand when to engage and when to withdraw, when to speak and when to listen, when to be warm and when to maintain distance. The mastery aspect comes from being able to navigate these dynamics smoothly and naturally, rather than having to consciously think through every interaction. The final phase involves using your developed invisible dominance for strategic purposes, advancing your actual objectives rather than just feeling powerful. This means identifying what you want to accomplish and using your enhanced personal presence and social skills to achieve those goals. Strategic positioning involves placing yourself in situations where your unique combination of skills and traits provides maximum advantage. It means building relationships with people who can mutually benefit from association with someone who possesses these qualities. It also means learning to recognize opportunities that others miss and positioning yourself to take advantage of them. Your enhanced observational skills, emotional regulation, and social intelligence allow you to see and respond to opportunities more quickly and effectively than others. The strategic aspect ensures that your invisible dominance serves meaningful purposes rather than just being an end in itself. In workplace settings, invisible dominance manifests as natural leadership ability that doesn't depend on formal authority. Colleagues naturally turn to you for guidance and insight, even when you haven't actively sought leadership positions. You become known for making sound decisions under pressure, for seeing the bigger picture when others are caught up in details, and for remaining calm during crises. These qualities make you valuable to organizations and create opportunities for advancement. Your enhanced ability to read people and situations allows you to navigate office politics effectively without getting drawn into destructive conflicts. You understand the real power structures and decision-making processes, not just the official ones. People find working with you refreshing because you don't create unnecessary drama, don't require constant reassurance or validation, and don't compete in petty ways for attention or credit. In personal relationships, invisible dominance creates deeper connections based on genuine respect rather than need or dependency. You attract higher quality people because you're not desperate for connection and can therefore be selective about who you invest in emotionally. Your relationships are more balanced because you're not constantly seeking validation or trying to prove your worth. This allows both parties to be more authentic and create space for genuine intimacy to develop. Friends and romantic partners appreciate your emotional stability and your ability to provide clear, thoughtful perspective on their problems without being controlling or manipulative about it. Your ability to remain centered during conflicts allows relationships to survive challenges that might destroy connections between more reactive people. In social situations, invisible dominance makes you naturally magnetic without being attention-seeking. People are drawn to your calm confidence and find your presence soothing in a world full of anxious, needy energy. You become someone others seek out for advice and perspective because they trust your judgment and appreciate your ability to see situations clearly without being driven by personal agenda or emotional reactivity. Your influence grows organically through demonstrated competence and consistent character, rather than through self-promotion or manipulation. This creates sustainable influence that doesn't depend on constant maintenance or performance. People respect your boundaries and treat you well because they recognize that you won't tolerate disrespectful behavior and don't need their approval enough to accept poor treatment. One significant risk of developing invisible dominance is social isolation. As you become less reactive to social pressure and less needful of external validation, you may find that some relationships naturally fall away. People who were primarily drawn to your neediness or your willingness to tolerate poor behavior may lose interest when those dynamics change. This can initially feel lonely, but it's generally a positive development in the long run. The relationships that survive this transition are typically healthier and more genuine than those that don't. The key is maintaining the ability to form deep connections with people who appreciate your authentic self, rather than becoming so self-contained that you lose the ability to be genuinely close to others. With invisible dominance comes responsibility to use it ethically. Your enhanced ability to influence others should be used to create positive outcomes, rather than just to serve your own interests at others' expense. This means being honest about your motivations and objectives, treating others with respect even when you don't need their approval, and using your influence to help others develop their own strength rather than creating dependency. The temptation will be to exploit your advantages for short-term gain, but this ultimately undermines the foundation of trust and respect that makes invisible dominance effective in the first place. There's also a risk of becoming so strategic in your interactions that you lose touch with your authentic feelings and desires. Invisible dominance should enhance your natural personality, rather than replacing it with a carefully constructed persona. Regular self-reflection and honest assessment of your motivations helps prevent this drift toward manipulation and maintains the genuine confidence that makes invisible dominance effective. The goal is to become more yourself, not less. Just a more powerful and influential version of yourself. Invisible dominance is the hidden trait that separates those who shape their reality from those who merely react to circumstances created by others. It's the difference between being powerful and appearing powerful, between influencing others and manipulating them, between commanding respect and demanding it. Machiavelli understood that true power operates beneath the surface of obvious displays. The most dangerous people are those who can influence outcomes without anyone realizing how much control they actually possess. They shape conversations without dominating them, guide decisions without making demands, and create loyalty without offering bribes or threats. This trait gives you an unfair edge because most people never develop it. They remain trapped in cycles of seeking validation, reacting to social pressure, and trying to prove their worth to others. While they exhaust themselves in these futile pursuits, you develop genuine competence and unshakable confidence that makes external validation irrelevant. The ultimate power is not needing power displays. The ultimate influence is not needing to convince others of your influence. The ultimate dominance is so invisible that others never realize they're being dominated. They simply find themselves naturally wanting to follow your lead. In a world full of people desperately trying to be noticed, the person who has transcended that need becomes impossible to ignore. In a society obsessed with external validation, the individual who has achieved internal certainty becomes naturally magnetic. In an environment dominated by reactive behavior, the person who responds strategically becomes the one who shapes outcomes. This is Machiavelli's secret. True power is invisible, authentic dominance is effortless, and the ultimate edge comes from becoming so comfortable with yourself that others can't help but be comfortable following your lead. The choice is yours. Continue playing the obvious game where everyone can see your moves, or develop the hidden trait that allows you to influence the game itself while appearing to simply participate in it.